All right, we're back with another video here. In our last video, we had got to the stage where we had been able to make a complete training week, and we have been able to tally up the total weekly repetitions, which we can see here. Each day had its rep count, and then from the first video in the series, we had the relative intensity for each given exercise, the tonnage for each given exercise, and the number of repetitions for each given exercise. So what we're going to do today is set up a little summary type sheet down the bottom here, and I'm using a keyboard attached to the iPad today, so you'll notice that there isn't the buttons popping up down the bottom, but that is okay. So first of all, what we're going to do is just think of this overall, and then we will classify this into specific exercises. So what we'll do over this side here is we will just pop down here somewhere, week 1. Right, so this is the first week, and as we go through this later on, you will see we will end up having this done for each week as we go through a program. If we were to add another week, how can we kind of keep track of what we have done previously? So in our first column here, what we will just write is the total rep count, right? Then in the row next to that, the column next to that, we will have the tonnage for that given week. And then let's just make this last one here into we'll separate it out, okay? We'll go from reps and tonnage. We'll now go to the reps for each given exercise. So I'm going to classify these simply as upper push. Across here in our next one, we're going to go upper pull. So upper push is obviously going to be our bench press and our squats and things like that. And the next one that will pop here is squat, right? And that'll be all types of squats. And then the last one, let's just call this one lower pull, right? So things like deadlifts. Now, you can classify these however you want. These are just completely arbitrary things that I've selected here, okay? And firstly here, what we're going to do is we will merge these guys by pressing that little button that you've just seen pop up in green up the top there with the arrows pointing towards the middle. And we're going to go exercise reps. All right, we're going to copy and paste that here, copy, paste, and we're going to make this next one into exercise. Let's go with average relative intensity here, right? And we'll just make sure that's spelled correctly. So now what we have set up here is our headings, right? The appropriate headings, the overall reps and tonnage, right? And I'm just going to drag this along here so that we can make all of this centered horizontally as well as centered vertically. And then for these titles that are going to end up down this side here, I'll make sure those are in bold, and same with these ones over here. I will make sure that these guys here are in bold. Now the rest of the formatting, as I mentioned, we will do that at a later time, but we're just getting all these things set up. So the total reps is quite an easy one for us to get here, right? Essentially one of the things that I think can be beneficial is to make it so that you kind of have a way that you sort of double check that this number here is also correct. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unhide these, and all I'm going to do is add in every single exercise column that I have for reps. So I'm going to go ahead and speed up the video as I do this. So that formula is now entered in, and you can see it basically just added up the rep cell from every single one of these exercises that we have entered in here. You'll notice up the top, the total reps is 364 for the weekly reps, which is calculated from adding together each of these daily reps. And then as we have a look down here, that matches the 364 that we have for the weekly reps at the bottom here. So it's a good way to be able to sort of check if there's an error somewhere within the sheet. If those two don't match up, something somewhere has gone wrong, and you can then go and identify that error. So what we're going to do now is, because the reps cell is located directly below the tonnage cell, what I am going to do to make my life simple is I'm going to simply copy this one and I'm going to paste it in the cell above. And so you'll notice that it has automatically calculated the tonnage, but it's removed my reps header. But the beautiful thing is when you copy and paste, it refers to the same cells relative to where you have pasted it. So because I've pasted one cell up, it means that it's automatically calculating all of that tonnage that we saw above for those exercises. And we will use this same trick, I guess, when we also do the exercise reps and exercise relative intensity. So I'm going to cut that cell now because that means that it does not refer relative, it refers to the exact same cells that it did before. So I'm going to cut that and I'm going to paste that here, and in that column there again I'm going to enter back in my reps, and I'm also going to make that bold and centered again, right? So now what we have is we have our weekly reps and we have our weekly tonnage. Now these next steps, actually, we might not do that little trick because it's not going to take us too much effort actually just to add up those cells. And as you go through these videos and I add more of them, I will make ways that you can automate some of these steps, right? But for now, we're going to have to go through and select the rep columns for all exercises that are an upper body push. All right, before I do that, I just want to insert a row above here because I like to have that clear space above. So there we go. So I'm going to go equals, and I'm going to go through and choose every single upper push exercise that I have in here. So we have an incline dumbbell bench press, right? And we want to plus that with the bench press, and then we will have the same scenario for our Monday session, right? We have the incline bench press and we have the bench press. So I click and enter, right? And then I go down and have a look at that, and you can see there's 98 repetitions for upper body push. Now, what I know about the upper body push is that the cells for the upper body push relative intensity will be 2 above those numbers, right? But we're going to have to use a different formula for those. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in here and we're going to go equals, and I'm going to go through equals average, right? Because we're going to get an average value for this, and I'm going to choose the relative intensity for all upper body push. So this one, I'm going to put a comma, and then I'm going to choose this one. Going to put another comma, and then we're going to go to the incline bench press here, have another comma is already there, and we're going to select that one there, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to close that bracket, right, and I will hit enter there. What you can see here is it has automatically determined that that is 72%. Now, because this is an average, if I am able to, what I actually want to do here is go through and change this. How do I go through that when I have that one? So there we go, right? So I've got out of the writing into the cell and I've just selected the cell now. In here, I'm going to click this one. I'm going to go into cell, and what I'm going to do is just change that up so it is 1 decimal place that relative intensity is saved to. Now I'm going to go through to the exact same thing for my upper body pulls, for my squats and my lower body pulls, and I'm going to speed that up so that you don't have to see me do that because the process is exactly the same. So we're now at the stage where we've got a rep count for the week, we have a tonnage count for the week, so let's just make that one here. We'll merge those ones and we'll just say weekly totals, right, for reps and tonnage. Then we've got the specific exercise reps for upper push, upper pull, squats and lower pull, which is basically our deadlifts today. And then we have our exercise average relative intensity for the upper body push, the upper pull, the squats, and the lower pull. Now, if you were watching carefully, you will have noticed that I sort of went through a little stage where I dilemmaed whether I should call a leg press a squat, and I decided against it, right, just for the purpose of how I classified these. And that's because essentially I'm only wanting to count the exercises or the areas that are important to me. Whoops, we're just going to undo that. And so, therefore, I just really didn't want to I guess, muck around with having those included as a squat, where I might add, say, a front squat on another day, and then those exercise specific reps will go up. So I've just decided basically a leg press is an accessory, and I don't need to worry about monitoring that specifically under the squat heading, right? But it's still included in our total weekly reps because it is a heavy exercise that I consider worth including within my totals, and that's up to you how you choose to include that. One thing you notice is within the upper pull, we haven't included the pull-ups here, right? Because they weren't counted as reps. So again, with your accessory exercises, you do need to make those calls, and that's up to you. I'm not going to tell you which way you should or shouldn't do that. The other thing is we've chosen exercise reps here rather than exercise tonnage. You might choose tonnage as your volume tracker, and again, that is completely up to you. So that is where we are at the end of this week. One last little thing that we're going to do is basically show you how you would use this to then add another week of training and quickly edit that. So that's the next thing we're going to go through here. So I'm just going to click that little arrow up the top, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this one, right? And you'll notice that now if I go from here back to here, that tidies up and the formatting looks pretty similar, okay? So this one here then is going to be, rather than being week 1, this is going to be week 2, right? And I'm gonna hit enter in there. And what I'm gonna go down first here, right? I need to rehide all of these blank cells, but we'll leave that for now. So I'm gonna choose these ones and I'm going to cut those, okay? And then I'm going to paste them in the row below. So you have to cut, you cannot copy those ones, right? And then I'm going to give this the heading of week 2. After I've done that, what I need to then do is make it so that these counts from the previous week reappear, right? So you can see the name of this tab is week W-summary or week with summary. So what I want to do is I want to click equals here, right? And then I am going to enter in that title, right? Week with summary. I'm going to put a little line there and I'm going to put an exclamation mark. Now the beauty of these pre-defined sort of sheets like we've done here is that it's always going to be that same cell, that in week 1 for reps, it's always going to be cell C160. So I'm going to enter that one in, right? And we can see that that has last week's reps now appear. Unfortunately, it does change our formatting. So I'm going to go along here. I'm going to center those that way and that way again. And I'm now just going to simply copy that and paste that in the row next door, sorry, in the cell next door. I'm then going to copy both of those because remember when we copy and paste, it always refers to the relative cell or the cell in the relative position. So now what we've got as I go to set up my next week is I have all of the values from last week appearing up the top, which obviously match because we haven't yet changed anything from the second week, right? But you're going to be able to keep a track of how those things are changing. And in our next video, we'll go through how to create some graphs and how to format your sheet to look a bit nicer. But let's just go through and let's just make some real random changes here, right? So let's just say we're going to put these ones here up to 100. All right, so we've got 100 there, 100 there, and 100 there. In this case here, we're just going to add another set of 8 to those incline dumbbell bench press, and for our barbell row what we're going to do here is simply change those to 85, right? And these are just completely random changes. Remember, I'm not doing this with any purpose. This is just to show you how the sheet works. Then what we'll do is we'll carry on down. Let's say on Tuesday what we're going to do is we're going to add another set of 5 in that squat at the same weight, and what we're going to do is we're going to add a rep on each of these deadlift sets. Right, again, completely arbitrary changes. As we go down through here, let's say that for the leg press, we're going to go up to 190, 190, and 190. Then I'm going to go down to this next one, bench press down here. Let's say that I'm going to keep these ones with the same weight and we're going to add a rep, right? Because remember, these were initially exactly the same last week, but we're just doing this so you can see how it kind of works out. Here, we'll change these to 10s. Oh. Right, we'll add another set of 15 here for the row. Come through for the squats. We're going to do 130 here. Right, for the deadlifts, let's go up to 160. Remember, arbitrary changes. Nothing here is that logical. Click into here and let's just say that we're going to keep that leg press weight the same on the Saturday, but we're going to go up to 15s for those. So now as we come down and have a look down the bottom, what you can see is our reps have been updated, right? So we're at 4, oh, let me click in there and just go undo. So what we can see there is that for the reps in our week 2, right, weekly totals, we're now at 413. Our tonnage has gone up from 41,000 to 48,000. Our upper body pushing reps have gone up, our upper body pulling reps have gone up, squats, and then what you'll notice here is it's also automatically calculated those exercise relative intensity. So we've had a little bit of a change in those, right? And remember, the changes we made were arbitrary. They weren't doing anything of relevance really or an importance. I hadn't selected those for any reason. It was just kind of to show you how the sheet works. But now what happens, right, is that 364 If I go back into week 1, right? So I'm going to go back to this first week with summary, and let's say that the athlete missed this one here, right? So if I delete that from that first week, we click out there, go back in. What you can see is now that's changed from 364 reps to 359, right? So it automatically updates anything like that from previous weeks if you go through and change what was actually done. So that's the beauty of referring back to the previous week's cells, is that if changes are made in that week, it will automatically update for you, which is kind of handy. So that team is what we're going to go through. That's all we're going to go through today. Next time, as I said, let's look at some graphs, ways that we can kind of monitor what we're doing. And then later on, we're going to get into automation, which is some crazier formulas, but it will be of use to you. I hope that you've enjoyed that video and that you've got something of value for it to apply in yours or your athlete's training. Cheers, team.